Hello, everyone. This is your two favorite girls from Double A. It's season 2.
Welcome to season 2. I finally put on clothes for you.
It feels like just 2 days ago we had season 1.
Shut up. You're corny.
So we have a special guest today because of my case. This man right here, who I annoy every day. So he is in the Air Force. What are you, honey?
I'm a staff sergeant.
He's a staff sergeant in the Air Force. So this will help with my case that I have. So technically, it's solved, but not really, because there's a lot of questions to be had of this very young lady. So her name is LaVena Lynn Johnson. She was born on July 27th, 1985. She's the daughter of Dr. John Johnson and Linda Johnson. She was born and grew up in Florissant, Missouri. And then she graduated from Hazelwood Central High School. So she was known to be a honor roll student. She was one of 4 siblings. Immediately after she graduated high school, she had told her parents she wanted to join the Army. Since her father was retired in the Army, she thought that she could follow in his footsteps along with having the Army pay for school. Because supposedly she wanted to go to school out of state in California. And, she didn't want, her parents could have afforded it, could have paid for her schooling. Plus, she had scholarships, but she wanted to do it all on her own without her parents' help. So she decided to join the Army. So she deployed shortly after she got out of basics and did her other trainings. She deployed to Balad, Iraq in 2005, and I'm probably butchering that name.
Don't ask me.
So she's a private first class, and she worked in the communications building. So what I was watching in the interviews with her parents was that she was actually stationed, I believe, in Texas is what it is. And she wasn't supposed to go to Iraq because most of her unit already went and they didn't need her. But her higher up basically was like, no, you're still going to go. So, of course, she had no say in it. So she went. So on July 14, 2005, according to her father, she had called home. She regularly called home, wrote home, mostly talked to her mother, but on this day, she actually talked to her dad. And she expressed to her dad that around closing time, which is around 4 or 5, she was supposed to lock up the communications building that she was working at. And the soldiers that were there were not listening to her at all whatsoever. They were just not minding her that day. And so the general actually came and kicked the soldiers out. But rather than reprimanding the other soldiers for not listening to her, she got in trouble. She basically was told that, quote, she was not being stern enough or she was being too soft-spoken, and that's why nobody was listening to her. So her dad told her, well, why don't you request a battle buddy? And a battle buddy is...
A battle buddy is somebody who the military refers to it as somebody who's always there beside you. So wherever you go, they go. Wherever they need to go, they go with you.
Shadow.
her father told her, why don't you go get a battle buddy? She said, no, I don't want to upset anybody else. I don't want to do that. So the dad said, you either go and get a battle buddy or request a battle buddy, or I will do the request for you. I will give you some time to think it over, because he felt like with the tone of her voice that she was like something else was going on. So they later found out that she was actually sexually assaulted, and she ended up getting tested for an STD. Don't know what the STD was, and we don't know the results of that. So she supposedly got an STD from whenever she got assaulted. And that's probably one of the reasons why she didn't get a battle buddy, because she really didn't want to anger anybody else, nor did she didn't even tell her parents or her family that she had an STD, because it's very, to her, I guess it was quite embarrassing. She didn't want to let her dad down.
Plus, it's personal.
Down. Yeah. And so, anyway, so the last phone call with her family was actually on July 17, 2005. She told her dad that she most likely will have leave for Christmas and to not decorate for Christmas until she got there. So then 2 days later, on July 19, 2005, her dad said around 7:30 a.m., a soldier came to knocking at the door, and the mother and father were there, but the mother was actually the one who answered the door. And the soldier told them that, they regretfully, how do they say it? I regretfully inform you that your daughter, LaVena L. Johnson, private first class LaVena L. Johnson.
Just E3?
Is that
No, that's...
Isn't that the first?
No, it would be private. It'd be no rank, which is during boot camp. Then they get private, then they get PFC. So it would be E3. And the Marine Corps was E2, though. Army does theirs.
Yeah, so every military branch
E3.
is different. Yeah, every military branch is different. Hello. So,
hi, thanks for checking in.
So what ended up happening was the soldier actually, said, I regretfully inform you that your daughter, private first class LaVena L. Johnson, had passed away. But he slipped up and said of self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
So technically he wasn't supposed to say that. So the dad, was there. The mom's already in hysterics. She's basically like she can't talk. She can't do anything. She just found out her daughter passed away.
She's in shock.
And so her dad basically asked, are you telling me my daughter committed suicide? And the soldier, this is all according to her dad, and I will link the YouTube videos of his interviews. But her dad basically, the soldier basically was all defensive, just put up defensive mode. Basically said, no, I never said that. They're launching an investigation and all this stuff. But he literally said self-inflicted wounds, which is you did something to harm yourself.
It's crazy. The whole story is crazy.
It's absolutely nuts. So then, the father wanted more answers. With him being a veteran, he wanted more answers. He knew the ins and outs kind of the Army and the military. So he wanted to investigate himself. So the Army investigator stated to her dad that the day of her death, she had closed up the building as normal between 5 and 6. She was in her physical training clothes, in her PT clothes. She was supposed to go to PT right after. The people that were at the PT were like, she never showed up at all. So, do they do roll call in PT?
Yeah, I mean, they would do.
Okay, so most, I mean, I'm assuming Army is the same. They'll do a roll call for PT. So, since she was not there, they sent somebody to go and look for her. They ended up finding her in a tent, in a contractor's tent. And so the picture, I actually have the picture, and I'm gonna show it to you guys. And for our anchor listeners, I'm gonna try to describe it the best way that I can. Okay. So
You can look on our look on our Instagram.
So this is the original picture. She is laying on her back. Okay. She's laying on her back. She's got her PT clothes on. That is a burnt, some kind of burnt paper. Her shoes are off. There's no gloves, as you can tell, because that's very, very important later on. There's the cot. And there is, right there on the opposite side of the cot, is an M16, supposedly. So, so then the what was it? So after they found her, of course, an investigation, the soldier then went to the family's home, told them, and then so the soldier that came to the door and told them the bad news ended up saying, "Hey, I'm supposed to ask you guys if you guys can do a closed casket for her, because I heard that it's not a very pretty sight, essentially." So the family was like, "No, we're not going to do a closed casket. We're going to do an open casket." So that's what happened. They ended up having an open casket for LaVena. So according to her dad, when they did, the visitation, they did the open casket or whatever. LaVena's sister, I think it was just LaVena and her sister are the only two girls, and I think the other three were her brothers. So LaVena's sister actually was the first one to notice that LaVena's face was pretty beat up. And beat up, I mean, like, you can tell her nose was broken, and then either someone tried to push it back or something. Her nose was broken. Her teeth were knocked out and pushed back.
And she had black eyes.
She had a black eye. She had a lot of abrasions and bruises on her. So here's the main part, okay? So the Army ruled it as a suicide. They claimed, this is what they claimed. They claimed the M16 that is on the other side of the cot that I showed you guys, that is literally right there on the you see where that is. The M16 is on the other side of that cot, and she's laying on her back. So supposedly, the Army says she put it inside her mouth and shot herself. Okay, so here's the bad part. There was only one bullet wound, and it was on the left side of her temple. And how big are the bullets on an M16?
Very inconsistent.
They're 5.56 by 39 millimeter. They're not super powerful because our body armor will somewhat protect you from it. But if I would, because I'm right-handed, even if I was right-handed and I was to shoot myself in the head, you're talking about, I'm trying to get where they
Let's kick back on that.
Like, I would have to hold the M16 probably about like this. I mean, my right hand's kind of outstretched, and my dog does not like the fact that I'm doing this, but I'd have to have my right hand kind of outstretched, and as soon as I pull that trigger, it's gonna pop out of my hand.
Yeah, that
probably
kick back.
go a little bit of distance, But how that rifle is sitting, that looks like somebody laid that rifle down.
So
Definitely.
literally, she's 5'1". The M16 is 40 inches long, is it not?
Yeah,
Roughly 40 inches long. She's 5'1", so that means her arms are the length of my arm because I'm 5 foot. And it's
T-Rex arms.
I'm gonna show y'all my good arm because my bad arm can't stretch out that far no more. So literally just right here. That's how long my arm is, and I'm 5 foot. Okay.
Yeah.
So they said that she shot herself inside her mouth, exited out of her left temple.
So it had to be at an angle.
At an angle, and then where it was, how the gun was supposedly positioned, was all wrong. And then how the gun is completely laid down on the opposite side of the cot, farther away from her, is just. And then she was not, that particular gun that was laid there was not the weapon that she was assigned to. So you're not supposed to have a weapon that you're not assigned to, right? When you're deployed?
You're supposed to have, if you have a weapon assigned to you, you're supposed to have it either on you or in the armory. And with her being at in a contractor's tent, usually the military, back then, I don't know how they did it, but they most likely kept the contractor separate from the military when it comes to sleeping quarters. But when it came to like if they were doing missions or any kind of operations, they would probably be working in tandem with each other. But I would definitely say they most likely, because I just came up from a deployment, my first one back in 19. We had contractors in our dorm area, but they were in a separate. They had their own room. But if they had a tent, because back then 2005, they're 4 years into a war. I would assume they probably ended up being Army. They're most likely in tents. Mm-hmm. So they would, because that's how the Army is and the Marine Corps is. So they most likely would have tents for the contractors, tents for the military. She was probably walking past, and the contractors decided to do something, and the Army decided. And I'm not saying that everybody in the Army covered it up, probably, but
there's a lot of cover
but
up for.
Think about it. She was found in a burning tent.
Yeah, the guy who did the came and knocked on the door and stuff. He probably slipped up and said self-inflicted wound, and then as soon as the father asked about it, he probably realized I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
He probably didn't even have anything to really. He was just the person telling them.
So, like Amber said, the tent actually was on fire. So how could she have decided, okay, well, I'm going to set this tent on fire, but then I'm going to go inside and then I'm going to blow my head off. But then after I do that, set the gun and put it on the opposite side of the room.
And not only that, then she had to put chemical burns in her genitals.
Yeah. So they also, the family also found some kind of acid inside her vagina. Okay, so the family's over here like, okay, y'all are telling us it's a suicide, and it's literally not from this autopsy report. They ended up getting, the dad ended up getting an 800-page report and then a 300-page picture, all of it, black and white, Xerox picture, okay? One of those pictures ended up having a CD, like there was a picture of a CD. So they requested for that CD-ROM to be sent to them. The Army was like, no, we're not going to send it to you guys. And he was like, no, I have the right to have that CD because I'm LaVena Johnson's father. So he ended up actually going to Congress. The congressman for that state of Missouri actually demanded for them to get for the father to receive that CD. So he ended up getting that CD. And within that CD are all the pictures in the autopsy report in color. That's what was that CD.
I have so much to say about this case. Like,
so
so much to say.
Going back to the gun, since that was supposedly the primary weapon or the reason why she died, there was no fingerprints on the gun whatsoever. So then there were the guy that found her ended up saying, "Oh, well, I moved the gun." Okay, so you just tampered
with evidence.
with a crime scene. And he said that he moved the gun, but yet there was no fingerprints. No prints. He didn't have prints. LaVena's, there were zero zip prints. But yet the Army could not or would not answer that question as to why there was not one single print on that gun. And it wasn't even the gun that was issued to her. The gun that was issued to her was nowhere to be found at all. There was no bullet or shell that was found anywhere near the tent. Also, there was blood outside of the tent. And they would not test that blood, nor did they test or swab inside her vagina. They did not do any kind of DNA testing.
Well, they didn't swab inside of her vagina because of the chemical burns, and those burns were used to remove the DNA from her rapist.
Yes, but they still didn't do any kind of DNA. So
they didn't.
Here's the big, huge, like, we don't know what's going on. So when the family finally received their daughter's body, if you watch the video, her mother was like, it took the father, her husband, and it took the husband's sister to help her mother because she was just so distraught seeing her baby in a casket. So, or in a box. So, what was I going with this? Oh, okay. So what happened was she got delivered with her gloves glued to her dress blues gloves glued to her. And that's not...
So when they get to the funeral director, they're supposed to provide the funeral director with the uniform and everything. And then they're supposed to be able to, the funeral director prepares the body, so the funeral director be the one putting the clothes on. So if she showed up with just her dress blue gloves on.
No, she was fully dressed already.
She
was fully dressed and her gloves already glued to her hands.
Well, they might dress them up. So
the funeral director, the father went to the funeral director and was like, is this the thing? Because last time I checked, it wasn't. Funeral director said no. She was already in her dress blues. Her gloves were already glued to her. And there's theories going around that they did that just so they couldn't get any DNA underneath her fingers, just in case there were any DNA. So they did that. Again, no rape kit was found, or no rape kit was done, I should say. So then there's some really unexplained facts. So there was no explanation given to the family about any of the bruises, abrasions, or inconsistency of the bullet wound. So the dad actually called the examiner, the official examiner that did her body first, and said, hey, there's only one bullet wound, and it's coming from her left side, and she's right-handed. And the examiner said, oh, well, it's how she angled the weapon, but it's an M16 that's long with short arms. And the examiner swore up and down that it was possible, that she was able to do it if she really wanted to. Apparently, she really wanted to kill herself because supposedly something about her and her boyfriend either had a fight or a breakup. Her boyfriend was that she was dating for 6 months, and she was burning his letters, hence the burnt paper beside her. I don't think that's the case because she was known to not be that kind of person. She never wanted to self-inflict herself. She was very headstrong, and she was very much so, clear of her goals. And her goals were to, be in the army, have her school paid for, go to school, get her degree, come back, to her family and whatnot. So then another unexplained fact was her arm length versus the length of the weapon and the point and angle of the entry wound, which the father said it made it physically impossible with how the exit wound was supposed to be. So how big are the
So 5.56.
M16s?
So it's 5.56 rounds, probably about that big. And I mean, if you hit, it's going to be a small entry wound, but the exit wound is going to be bigger. Just with any other, the only thing that's really going to be big is if you hit somebody with like a 50 cal or a 12 gauge shotgun, you're going to get a big entry wound, or a 10 millimeter pistol. But the 5.56 would have it'd been a small hole and it'd been a big hole. And of course, as soon as if she had shot herself in the head, there'd be fragmentation of the round, but
So there was none of that. None. And then the exit wound was a tiny, what the father said looked like a 9 millimeter bullet hole, essentially. So that was the only bullet hole that was found, was on her left temple. There was nothing on the back of her head. There was none of that sort.
Brody's
underneath the table?
Yes, he's
okay.
Underneath the table.
So the placement and positioning of the body when it was found was not consistent with the force of impact. Like I said, she's laying down. She's laying down on her back with her left arm draped across her face, like she's hiding her face. So how was that shooting yourself? And then gun being the other side of the room. Then the autopsy showed evidence that the stuff in the room were actually tampered with, but yet they won't put that in the report, nor will they investigate why it was tampered with. And military officials terminated all inquiries of the fellow soldiers regarding her death. They didn't want anybody to be asking questions about it. So the father ended up writing a long letter to any official that he can talk to, any Congress, anybody in the Supreme Court, anybody that can, his local officials, his state officials, and anybody that's basically could listen and talk to the military and reopen this case. So the questions was, why doesn't the bullet wound match the weapon that was issued to her? Why weren't the bruises, unbroken teeth, and visible trauma to her vagina never addressed when it was clearly shown at autopsy? Like, it was clearly there, yet they won't put it in the report as to why they didn't test it. They didn't even attempt to test anything. They didn't try to look at her bruises. They didn't interview anybody about her whereabouts or anything that was, suspicious around the time of her death. Why weren't there any fingerprints on the gun that she supposedly used to kill herself? Why was there no swabs done? And why were her gloves glued to her hand when the family received her body? And why was the tent that she was in set on fire? And why was there blood, or whose blood was on the outside of that tent? Because they never tested that one either. And then why was there, this one kills me, why was there a pool of blood smeared with footprints on top inside the tent yards away from the body? But nobody went to and research that or test it out. So, yeah, that's the case of LaVena. There's plenty more.
There's So the military ruled her death as a suicide, even though the case attracted the international attention amidst the allegation that she was also raped before she died. And her father became suspicious after seeing her body, so he began his own investigation. It was at then that the army started to refuse to release information, but then they finally did open up about it because of the Freedom of Information Act. After Representative William Lacey Clay Jr. raised questions at a congressional hearing over Pat Tillman's death. And if you don't know who Pat Tillman is, he was a professional football player in the NFL, which he left football league and became enlisted in the United States Army in June 2002 after the World Trade Center attacks. He was killed in Afghanistan in 2004, and the official story was that he was shot by enemy forces during an ambush. But then it was later revealed that he may have been killed by friendly fire, and the army commanders and members of the Bush administration covered it up. So because of the questions of his case, her case became under fire. And that's when they started to really get into her case and really open up about it. Yet they still didn't really give too much information. They gave a little bit of the autopsy reports and a little bit of photographs, and they just showed that the gunshot wound was inconsistent with suicide and that she was burnt to destroy DNA evidence of rape.
So the father actually had two separate autopsies done. Originally, what he wanted to do was to exhume the body. He wanted two separate examiners to do the autopsy separately and have those reports separately.
Yeah.
The state paid for one while he paid for the other. What had ended up happening was they ended up doing their reports together, despite what the family had wanted. And their ruling was, well, what is it called? When undetermined. They couldn't determine the real cause of death. But the army swears up and down that it was suicide. They will not open up the case again. The family's still fighting to this day. The family's still fighting to get it reopened, because there's a shit ton of inconsistencies.
We all know that she did not commit suicide. We all know she was murdered after she was raped. We all know that that was done by her fellow brothers and sisters of the army, and it was covered up.
So
We all know.
the statistics are
Oh,
50%,
yeah, I am crocheting, Shanna, just so you know. Yeah.
50% of women in the military that um, are deployed, I think the statistics were that half of them actually do have non-combat deaths, meaning they weren't in combat when they passed away. 25% of that 50% are of like suspicious, um, what is it called? They're suspicious deaths. But 25% of that 50 is suspicious death. So we all know women in the military um, they get looked down on a lot of times. So I wouldn't
It,
put it
it could
past.
be that, or she could have just known. I think it was because she was previously raped sexually, and maybe she was getting to the point that she wanted to speak about it, and she was approached to be silenced, and she probably was like,
Yeah,
"No,
maybe
I'm not going to be
in
quiet about it." And
person.
yeah, and then so she didn't want to be quiet about it, but the person who was very adamant on her being quiet about it took her life. So
Right.
she'll forever be quiet about it. So it
So
was
I believe there's
definitely
still a petition up. I will I forgot to double check. I believe there's still a petition up. If there is, I will put down the link for that petition. And just so, I mean, it really does just to have the family have some closure, because if you really watch these interviews, like the parents are so distraught, and you can tell that they're a close knit family, and he is trying his very best every single day to try to get somebody to answer his letters, show proof of all the autopsy. He's not even claiming that this is what um, his opinions are. It's literally in the autopsy that was given to him.
it's just a fact that she was not suicidal. She did not commit suicide.
And
So
all the
that's why it's still unsolved because we don't know who really killed her and who sexually assaulted her.
Yeah, like that's why I say technically, according to the army, technically it's a closed case, but we all
But
know it's not.
it's not.
Hence why I wanted to do it, because when I watched about it and read about it, I was like, oh,
That family needs justice.
it does. You have anything to say, honey?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
So I had him on because one, I needed a military person to correct me if I'm wrong, and two, because he actually does have um, something that resembles the length
Mine's a
of
little
an
bit
M16.
actually shorter, just a little bit, but mine's a little bit shorter, about 20 inches.
Okay, so that's why I said it kind of resembles.
Yeah.
So
But it does shoot the same caliber.
okay, so they shoot the same, but
Now, of course, back in around that time, they had a bunch of contractors over there, and some were doing some shady stuff. So I will say, and I don't want to step on y'all's toes because I really enjoy what y'all do. I did, however, look up PFC LaVena Johnson, and there is an article, and I will make sure you have it so you can read it. There's an article where they actually say they have a theory of what happened. And there was a general that met her a few days before her death. And they had a one on one conversation. She made a note of his name in her journal and had mentioned his name, I think, to her dad. Well, apparently, this general was having an extramarital affair. Another general who was in charge of him found out and told him to cut that out, stop it, end it now, because it is not only punishable under UCMJ. I mean, there's a lot that they can get you for in UCMJ, but it's punishable under UCMJ. It's a career ender. Well, apparently he didn't end it, and apparently she may have walked in on him and this woman, and then the guy got upset, beat her, and then staged her death. It's an article, and like I said, I'll make sure she has it.
I
So
wonder
that would
if
be
it's the same general that came in and pulled her off one day.
I mean,
I don't know, but we can't do conspiracy theory, so
No, no,
we
no.
gotta fact check it. We gotta fact check it. Make sure it's right.
Apparently 3 months later, he was getting relieved of his command and getting retired out of the military.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a motive.
All
Very
because
plausible.
of the extramarital affair, and then they labeled her suicide as in national security.
They won't.
But I'll make sure she has the article so she can look at it. I kind of glanced over real quick and looked at it and thought that was interesting. But there was 2 years later was when Blackwater did their. They had an operation where they shot a bunch of people. So, and her being a contractor.
Yeah, she was in the communication. She was that's why she was able to talk to her family almost every day, was because she worked in the communications building and she had access to the phones. She would call as regularly as she could. Their dad said at least once a week she was able to do it. So that is the case of LaVena L. Johnson. Again, like I said, if there's still a petition out to reopen her case, I will post that link and definitely sign that petition because her death needs to be looked at again.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get into this case. I do feel like I'm drowning in cerebral fluid, so bear with me if I stop for a moment. I can barely breathe. But my case is actually a soft case, which is why we flipped it up. This case kind of got my attention when I was sharing stuff to our public Facebook page. I initially was not going to take an extra case, but this case was so heartbreaking to me that I couldn't ignore it. It's about a very, very beautiful 5-year-old girl named Shaniyah Davis. She went missing from her mobile home in November in 2009. Later on, it came to be that she was given to a man by her mother to settle a $200 drug debt. And at this time, she was raped and then smothered, strangled to death. In November this year, she would be 16. Her mother, Antoinette Nicole Davis, gave her to a man named Mario Andrette McNeil. So at that point, they went to a hotel, and it says that Mario tried to text 26 other women, and all 26 women denied him. And it was on that point that he raped Shaniyah and strangled her and left her on the side of the road. 8 years after Shaniyah's death, it was reported that law enforcement and school officials failed to report concerns to protective service workers regarding her family. The police had literally just did a drug raid at her house a few months prior to her death. Actually, Shaquille O'Neal paid for her funeral, and J. Cole wrote a song about her, so Google that. But the reports state that Mario had previously dated Shaniyah's mother's sister, Brenda Davis, and he was familiar with the whole entire family and their mobile home. The family shared a single-wide trailer in Sleepy Hollow Mobile Park off Murchison Road. Mario knew everything about that house, even how to get into it when the doors were locked. So let's get deeper into Mario and understand who Mario is. So again, his name is Mario Andrette McNeil. He's classified as a murderer. His characteristics are kidnapping, sexual offense of a child, indecent liberties with a child, human trafficking, and sexual servitude of a child with the death. He only has one victim, which is the beautiful Shaniyah. Um, she was killed November 10th, 2009. He was arrested 3 days later after he actually spoke to police before that and tried to manipulate them. His date of birth is April 30th, 1980. He was booked on suffocation by murder, not the rape or the kidnapping.
Oh yeah, I read that. I thought that was bullcrap.
Yeah, he only got sentenced for suffocating her to death. So he was located in Fayetteville, Cumberland County, North Carolina, in the USA. And his current status as of May 29th, 2013, was sentenced to death. It took about 40 minutes for the jury to decide that he deserved the death penalty. And at the time that he got that sentence, he was 32 years old. The decision was said to have been made it took almost 8 hours over 2 days. And the jury never took a lunch to to solidify their choice. Like,
Heck
that made a
no.
difference. At the time of the sentencing, McNeil was the first person in the past 6 years of 2013 to be sentenced to death in North Carolina. There was no defense evidence to support his defense during trial, and he even said that he did not want anyone to testify for his sentencing on his behalf, which pissed off his mother and other family members. They really wanted to testify for him, but he's like, nope. And he even
Ew.
also told his lawyers that he didn't want them to offer a closing statement. So Shania's body was found on November the 16th, 2009 in Kudzu Patch off of the NC Highway 87 on Lee Harnett County line, 6 days after her mother reported her missing from their home. The autopsy determined that she had been suffocated and she had injuries consistent with sexual assault shortly before she died. Shaniyah died a slow and agonizing death with a carcass wasteland for her burial site at the age of 5 years old. During a 6-hour interview, Mario confessed that he took her to the Comfort Inn and Suites hotel at the request of her Aunt Brenda, and then he handed Shaniyah off to someone he thought was a relative to ensure that she went to school. He thought he was smarter than the police, so when he spoke to them a few days after being seen with Shaniyah at that hotel, he thought he could manipulate them. The aunt and the mother stopped communicating with him right after Shaniyah disappeared. Again, like I said, he had sex with Shaniyah after 26 women denied him via text. And then after he had sex with her, he suffocated her. Since Shania's mother sold her to pay off her $200 drug debt, she was charged with first-degree murder, indecent liberties with a child, felony child abuse, felony sexual servitude, rape of a child, sexual offense of a child by an adult offender, human trafficking, and making a false police report. Prosecutors did not seek the death penalty for her. She is currently serving 17 and a half years
I'm
for
sorry,
that.
but I would.
She deserves the death penalty.
She deserves all the worst shit possible. Is
That
what
she
she
definitely
deserves.
deserves to be on death row. Mario maintained his innocence in killing Shaniyah, even rejected the trial, and stated that before the trial started, that could have gotten him off death row. But since he said he was innocent, he got death row. And that is as far as I got in her case. Because honestly, it pissed me off. It really pissed me off because how the fuck do you give your child away?
Or think that a child is $200 worth.
Like, I know a lot of people that's been strung out and they still raise their kids. Granted, it's very dysfunctional. Some of them are very protective of their kids, but I can understand. I can understand when you're that messed up that you're not thinking straight. But the biggest thing at this point, I can't even be mad at the mother at this point, because at this point she's surpassed being able to comprehend anything. She's too far gone in drugs. No one cared enough to get her the help she needed. There was many times that people could have gotten involved to de-escalate the situation, and they looked the other way. And in my opinion, they looked the other way because this is a black family that has a mother on drugs. So not only does she have the color of her skin against her, she's got being a woman against her, and then she's got being on drugs against her.
If you guys didn't
So,
see the picture that I posted, that picture I was holding up, that is her.
and she's so beautiful. She's
She is
such a beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous. Let it wait. So there you go.
Yeah,
She
she's
is
such a beautiful girl.
absolutely gorgeous. And you
And you could
know,
tell at some point she was well taken care of. So I'm thinking like maybe her grandmother was taking good care of. Somebody took good care of her, because as you can tell, that girl did not starve. She looked very well fed, very well nourished. She was dressed. She looked very nice. She didn't look consistent with most quote unquote junkie children. She looked very well taken care of and very well loved. So
the whole system failed her.
completely felt her.
They completely failed her. There was no CPS knocking on the door. There was the protective services did not come and pick up this poor child. Um, even I believe it said even after like the teachers didn't report it or the teachers seen it,
Yeah,
um,
nobody reported it, which makes it
and didn't report it.
that's what makes me want to say, like, to the teachers that are listening to this, because I know I got several teachers in my family that listen. To anybody that works in any kind of state, any kind of federal, whatever you do that involves children or families, do your diligence and report this shit, man. And
You're obligated. They're obligated to report it, and you
you
can
got to do
actually
your
get
job.
in severe trouble if they find out that you found out about it and didn't report it. Now it's like the punishment for that is severe now.
And the
So
thing is that I'm not even gonna say nothing about the police, because we all know the police in the whole United States of America is fucked up. You got a few good ones, but you got a whole lot of bad ones. And so I'm not even counting on the police. I'm really counting on the teachers, because we put stock into our teachers. Our teachers are our children's safe haven for those little 8 hours that they're in school. So I remember a situation where I was in an abusive home, and something had happened and I got a bruise, and I went to school, and my counselors immediately grabbed me and asked me what
right.
happened. And the bruise didn't come from me being abused, it came from something else, but they knew that I was in an abusive home. And even from that, they even took us kids and got us like clothes and shoes and stuff when we couldn't do that. So I put the blame on the school system. Like I said, I'm not even going to mention the police. The in my opinion,
They probably wouldn't
police,
have done anything
yeah,
anyways.
we just put the police out of it. They just came in there for a drug raid. That's all they cared about, was just the drug raid. They didn't care about nothing else. They weren't thinking about nothing else. We're just gonna throw the police out of it. I'm just gonna say, like, the where she was every day at school, I know she spoke about something. I know she mentioned something, because little kids that age talk, and they tell you how they're feeling, and they're more open with their feelings at that age. And so I feel like the school system failed her.
Even if she didn't talk, just
She drew pictures.
the physical, if you see her every day as a
The
teacher,
withdrawing,
you would
yeah.
see her every day. So even if she wasn't talkative, as a teacher, you should know by the looks of, and I understand teachers nowadays have so many students that they're trying to look over, but you start seeing these kids, behave differently. If you see them act a certain way and you know that they haven't acted that way, especially around you before, that should automatically throw up a red flag. You should automatically be called into attention, like, hey, this
And
child's
plus,
acting up, or not doing so withdrawn when they're originally not withdrawn.
And
And
plus, the
something's
teachers
going
meet
on.
parents, and they can tell which parents has something going on. I'm sure meeting Shania's mother when she come to get the class schedule, meet the teacher, I know that they would have known that something was off about her and would have picked up that they need to keep their eye on her. Like when I go to any school my kids are in and I meet their friends, I pick up on each of their friends and I'm like, okay, I feel like this one needs a little bit more attention because you can see there's something about the child. Each child gives you off something different. So I don't feel like she was being paid attention to. And I just want to know what I believe her aunt was in on this too, because the aunt dated her or dated him, and the aunt and the mother stopped talking to him right after she disappeared. So the aunt already just down. But what happened to the rest of her family? It's not just the mother and the aunt. And at
Yeah, I
some point, she
want
was
to know
surely
where
taken.
her dad is, her birth father.
I don't think that she even knows because she was probably high when she had sex and got pregnant. She probably doesn't even know who it is, but it's obvious that Shaniyah is biracial. It's obvious that she's not fully black. So
That poor
she could be
child.
black and Mexican, she could be black and white, she could be black and Puerto Rican or something, but she's not fully black. But whatever the case, it doesn't even matter what her ethnicity is. Whatever the case is, family and school failed her.
She is
And
still a child, and this
a
poor
5-year-old.
child didn't even get to second grade, didn't even, can't experience her first dance. She can't experience anything at all.
She couldn't even be a mother.
Her
Like
being,
I said, she'll be 16 this year.
yeah, so she wouldn't even, by this time, she would have been getting her driver's license or already had it or
Thinking
working on
about
it,
prom.
right, and in high school. And who knows, she probably would have been these, just looking at her, I could tell she would probably been the smartest, friendliest child.
She seemed like she was so kind. She looked very loving. It's just, I'm very upset. And I'm just even more pissed off that the mother only got 17 and a half years.
Right.
That
I honestly, the women in that prison probably need to do something about her.
if
Like,
they haven't already, they probably already beat her ass when she first got in there because that was 11 years ago.
she needs more than that. Are you kidding me? She
So
needs more than that.
guys, she is due to be released in 6.5 years.
That is just that's
It's
like
completely nuts.
I have no words because when Amber sent me the picture, I was like, this poor baby. Like
Yeah,
this poor child. And who knows, like when that picture was taken, she looked just as happy as can be. And she
yeah.
probably, she would never have thought that, however long later that she would be sold and then for $200 and then used and abused and then killed.
And you know what's messed up? Her half brother was shot not too long ago. He was shot and killed.
That's
I
poor.
want to show you.
And
This
this,
is the just if you look at this is what I saw, which what made me want to take the case. If I can get my angles right, that's her being taken away. That's her in the hotel. That's him bringing her into the hotel. And look at the terror on her face. Wait, where is that? Right there, she totally looks like a different child, completely unkempt, hair, like she's in shock. Of course she's gonna be in shock. This is somebody that she actually knew because he dated her aunt. So of course she's in shock and she can feel something's not right. And then that's
yeah, and she
him
does,
getting her in the elevator.
who is she to run to? Who, like, she
Nobody.
doesn't know what her mother did, or maybe she did, but I assume being 5, I hope she didn't know what her mother was doing, because what her mother did, I just
So, she is biracial. Like I said, I didn't go deep into it because I got pissed, but she is biracial. Her father is actually Bradley Lockhart, and he actually was taking care of her. That's why she looked so well taken care of, because he was actually taking care of her. And he actually had her up until 3 weeks before she died, and that's when he let the mother get her.
and that poor dad probably is up to his head filled with guilt, you know, because
Because he's probably like, why did I let my
probably
baby girl go? But at the same time, it's like that's the mother. You don't want to deny
he
that.
probably thought, the mother needs to be in her life. She needs to have both the mother and father, even if they are separate, you know.
So
But
it was a one night stand, and that's how he got her pregnant. I just think that's crazy. He was the one who raised her for several years and then let her go 3 weeks before her death. This is the mother in court. And again, that's Shania's father. She should have stayed with him. He was doing a really good job with her.
yep, that poor
I
child.
know that he's probably never going to get over that.
No,
And
never. He's probably having nightmares about it.
it's then the fact that her brother got shot not too long ago.
I mean, as when you have kids, you don't ever want anything bad to happen to them. So when something bad does happen to them, good parents or good family members, good aunts and uncles, grandparents, whatever, like you end up having this guilt. Say like you sent your child to school like you would do every day, and a school shooting happened, something bad happened to them. You
Yeah.
end up having that guilt, because then it's like well, what if I didn't send them to school today? They would still be alive. You will be filled with so
Yeah.
much guilt. And just by the look of the mother, she
She
has
didn't
no
care.
remorse. She just, okay, she sold her daughter for $200. At least she got that debt paid. But at what cost?
Because now she's in jail.
And her child,
It's gone forever.
and
But I don't think she ever
part of
cared about
part of
Sean.
me hopes, part of me hopes that she gets rehabilitated and like suffers mentally from what she has done,
I hope she's never able to have
you
children
know.
again.
But like a big part of me is like, you really should have gotten the death penalty.
But if she
And
does
you,
come
and
out
you
and she's a changed person and say that she could have children again and she does have another child, hopefully she does right by that child and never repeats those mistakes and she actually learns how to love and care for somebody. But first, she needs to learn how to love herself. This woman doesn't love herself.
and honestly, like we said, the entire system failed failed this poor child,
Miserably.
failed
Yeah.
her. And hopefully they're feeling the guilt from it as well. All those teachers that are like, oh, well, I did see, something wrong, but I never said anything about it. Like,
But
come on.
see, here's the thing that I didn't understand. Like, after finding out that the father did raise her and that she went to the mother 3 weeks before her death, but the reports say the teachers didn't do anything. Well, when you think about that, well, how would the teachers know if it was the father that was raising her and bringing her to school and doing the homework with her? how would the teachers know if she didn't grow up with her mother? So should we be so hard on the teachers now? But why would they be in the report saying that they didn't say anything? So I got
But they
confused.
they would have, regardless if they knew that, or they didn't know that she went to her mother's. The first time you see that red flag sign,
Yeah,
some kind of change, regardless of who she's with, it should automatically come into attention.
yeah,
Because then something's not right. So they failed her completely. So I will blame the teachers
yeah,
and officials, regardless whether they knew or not that she went to her mother. And then another thing is, kids then get so excited when they're with another family member
yeah.
that they tell everybody. I had, your three. God, I don't know. All the teachers knew they were with me, but
Yeah,
they
I had
were
told them,
still
yeah, like
constantly
I
saying
emailed them before they went
oh,
down there.
I'm in my aunt's house in Alabama.
Yeah,
Like, okay, you've been here for 2 weeks. They know.
right.
And it's the same background when you're on your virtual class. They know.
Yeah. And
Or
they
when
got
you
that.
come.
They all got that email. Everybody knew that they were going to be there, but they were still excited to say something.
Yeah.
So I
So
know
I'm
she
pretty
spoke.
sure she had said something to.
And I'm also thinking that her mother had to be in the same school district that the father was in for um them to make sure she got to school because she would still have to go to school for those 3 weeks.
Right. And
So
then
there was
if
a big
if
change.
she
And you can
didn't
see how her hair
didn't go
was.
to school, yeah, if
Yeah.
she didn't go to school, then that's a huge red flag. And teachers and principals should have been calling, hey, why isn't your child in school? You know,
Yeah.
like,
So, so and they would have noticed that big difference because it looks like that's why she was so well taken care of because her father did a great job, kept her hair done and everything. And then she was with her mother, and you saw how her hair looked so different, was unkempt, and she was scared. It was a big like a culture shock, like a reality change because she went from being well taken care of and loved on and well fed, and then she's over here. Now she's in a drug addict's house and she's not being taken care of, probably not being bathed and probably not getting nourished the proper way because they don't really keep food up and stuff like that. And then this man, who knows how long in those 3 weeks that man has actually been touching on her. It might not have just been the night that she died,
right,
you know.
right.
And that was probably why she looked so frightened to be going into this hotel room with him. Because he probably was doing it the whole time since he knew how to get into the house, even if they were asleep. So
It's
uh,
that the
it's very
child.
disturbing.
We really have to, um, we really have to take a watch out for our kids.
Yeah,
Whether you're a parent, whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, a grandfather, we really have to take care and look after our kids. When there's
definitely.
even an ounce of something wrong, because everybody has that gut instincts, it needs to be called out, because I mean that's the only way we can protect our kids, and that's the only way we can show the kids, hey, something's wrong and I can see it in you.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you. Do not be afraid to tell me. I'm not, because a lot of parents do the victim shaming too, and they blame their kids, like, well, why didn't you do this instead?
And
You know,
we don't do that over here.
it shouldn't be that way, So definitely have your kids taught how to spot signs that are, if they're in situations that they're uncomfortable with, and immediately tell somebody that they fully trust, whether it's a guidance counselor, a teacher, or even, immediately you. because
Yeah.
I think I would want my child to immediately come to me and not be scared that I'd be
Yeah.
disappointed if something happened to them.
Yeah. That's how my kids are. Like, really, the only one that really needs to actually have a good talk and does is DeAndre. And you can tell at first he's like a little nervous, a little apprehensive, and he gets a little tear in his eye. But once you just give him a little reassurance, he gets it all out. And then he knows that he's loved and he's got a safe place. And on top of that, like if you know that you're in a situation where you can't do what you need to do for your child, let someone know. Like I know like when I'm struggling, especially because I go through a lot of health problems, I know that I can just call Arianne, like, I don't care about me. Hold my kids, feed my kids, take care of my kids until I can get better, basically. So I know I get them out of a situation that could be struggling. Like they'll never struggle, basically. They'll always be okay, whether they're going to Arian's house or to the grandma's house. Some between Arian and their TT, if I can't do something, I know that they're gonna be okay. And now that they got a new godmother, Jessica, they got 3 women that will make sure that they're okay if I can't
Right.
do something. So if you know that you're going to be in a situation, say if you know that you're on drugs and you're listening to this and you know that you have a problem and you want to get help but you can't quite get help and you got kids, please let somebody who really loves them and care for them while you care for yourself. And also check out
Even
my
if they,
podcast so I can help you.
honestly, like there's some teachers that I know that absolutely would take a child in, immediately, any of their students. I've heard of
I
one.
know a few of them.
I've
A
heard
few of them actually help.
of,
Yeah.
I read one teacher actually took in, her student because her student was in an abusive home
Yeah.
and CPS was not doing anything about it. And she, basically she was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? The child was like, can I please just stay at your house? The teacher made sure she was clothed, fed, went to school with her, made sure she attended, and you see this, she ended up growing and graduating without the help of her parents. Her parents did not care. They were just like, okay, well, the teacher took her, like that, she's the teacher's problem now. Teacher didn't care. Teacher didn't care. Teacher was
Yeah.
like, okay, she took care of her from, I think it was like fourth grade up until even now after graduating high school and after graduating college.
And you know
Like,
what? If I had better health, I would be doing that. Like I would. I would have a whole house full of kids. And they'll all get on my nerves, but they'll all get on my nerves under my roof.
right. I mean, like, I get on, like, I'm OCD about how clean my place is, but at the same time, if a child needs a safe place to go, I will definitely be having them here while I contact the authorities and figure out what needs to be done and make sure this child is fed and, has a comfortable place to sleep at least, So we definitely have to watch out for our kids, even if you guys have kids and their friends come over and you just see something just not, not right. Like
Let
you
them spend the night a lot more because you
right,
don't know how many times that one night at your house saves them from a lot. So if they continuously ask you to spend the night, let them. You don't know how much you're saving them. Even if you feel like it's an inconvenience, I'd rather be an inconvenience than them ending up like Shaniyah.
right. So just let us know what you guys think of these two stories. Quick little update. If you guys have not seen on the news while we're talking about children, there was a manhunt for an Oklahoma man that supposedly put out on social media a video of him sexually assaulting a 6-month old.
Oh, that little fucker.
Um, he was on the run around Oklahoma City. He actually got found 2 hours ago in Texas. So he is in police custody. I had shared that on my personal page if you guys are friends with me personally.
Share it on our page too.
And so that's an update on that.
Ooh,
I'm
listen
gonna
to my
get
last
back to you
podcast
on.
that I just put out last night because I had two of my kids featured on that. A lot of all of my episodes from episode 2 to 5 are very informative. Of course, the very first one was a very personal episode. It's probably the only time you'll ever hear me cry. But other than that, uh, just listen to the very last one because my kids were featured in that, and it'll give you a lot of good information. It was about suicide, but we weren't talking about committing suicide as what we would do. We're just giving you facts and statistics because a lot of those things no one knew. And it was a good teaching lesson for my children. So listen to that so you can hear mainly DeAndre had to say because he kept patting my shoulder. He wanted to just do the whole thing. So Jalen barely got a word
You
in.
gotta have him have his own little podcast,
I
honestly.
I will. I
Rather
told it.
rather than do the YouTube first, do his podcast though, because I mean he is a child, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't put his face out there.
Hey,
But he can do a radio talk show host because he's got that spunk. He's got
I will let
that
him do it. But he's got his stipulations that he can't quite follow. So as long as he learns to follow directions the 2 weeks that I gave him to do it, then he can do that. So who knows? We could be
We'll
carrying this
see.
2 weeks on for months.
We'll see.
We'll
So
see, but do check it out. It's This, That, and Shay, a Sunflower podcast. Which, like I told you before, do not confuse that with the live on on the web Facebook page. The lives on there is the Sunflower Talk Show. Arianne and I and other people get on there and talk adult stuff.
so and my podcast airs tomorrow with the answers to a lot of cues that I got, which is quite. I was like, "Who are these people?" And then I realized I'm like, "Oh, it's from my Q&A." So that will come out tomorrow. So I will post that on my personal page. Um, but you guys definitely let us know what you guys think of these two cases. We will come back on Sunday for Sunday Fun Day, and I believe we're
You don't want to miss.
reacting. We're
Yeah, you
reacting.
don't want.
Oh, by
We're,
the way, I watched some of it, and
I haven't watched it yet. I was gonna watch it with you and then react in real time. We're
uh,
gonna share. We're gonna share screen, but I'm gonna let you share screen because I get blotchy when I share screen.
it's uh so
So
definitely do not miss that because
yeah,
my
and
reaction will still be the same even though I watched two of his
right,
episodes.
I never watched it, so y'all know I cuss. But on top of that, we're gonna react to a few of those things, but something else is gonna happen on Sunday. You have to be live. Look, Anchor listeners and Spotify listeners, Pandora listeners, Apple listeners, wherever you're listening to us. This Sunday, coming up, this Sunday, what is it, the 14th?
I think
No, it's
no
13th.
13th.
The
13th.
13th. Oh, that's my brother's birthday. This Sunday, the 13th, do tune in. Everybody listening to this podcast on whatever podcast site you're listening, you have to tune in to our Facebook live recording of this podcast, facebook.com/AA crime files, because you do not want to miss not only the reaction that we're doing, but what's coming on with that. You don't want to miss it.
I
Tune
don't even
in,
know what she's talking about.
tune in and stay for the whole entire episode, even if it goes over, even if it's 2 hours. You don't want to miss Sunday.
I'm
Sunday
not
is
gonna
very
go
important.
over 2 hours because
You
my butt starts hurting.
I'm just telling you, you don't want to miss Sunday. You don't want to miss it.
So definitely check
Everybody.
that out. And just a reminder, you guys, since season two's kicked off, we've moved down to 2 days. So you guys will see us on Sunday, but then you won't see us again until Thursday. and Thursday will be both of us with both of our cases um, doing that.
So you can
So
re-watch our lives, re-listen to our podcast, check out our solo podcast to keep you full until
if
we
you
come back
love
in.
our voices so much, just definitely just take a listen to us. But we will
Oh,
see
please,
you guys.
I want feedback on my podcast, on my solo one, because I talk about a lot of personal things that people go through. So please DM me, let me know how you feel about my stuff. And DM me and let me know how you feel about Arianne's stuff too. Just DM us. Let us know.
Don't DM me because I have it on silent and I probably will not reply.
Look, this is my favorite shirt.
Message us on
It's
Anchor.
still torn from the last live that I did in this shirt. It's
Message
still
us
torn.
on or message me on Anchor if you guys need to message me.
Message us all on Anchor. Send us voice messages because we would like to upload those voice messages in future broadcasts. Send us everything. We want to know how you feel. Please don't miss Sunday. It's a big surprise, other
So
than the whole reaction thing.
we will see you guys on Sunday. I've got to go blow my nose and take some cold medicine.
Yeah, I feel like I'm
Because
drowning. So
so
don't miss
we will
Sunday.
see you guys on Sunday. Y'all have a great night. Be safe. Have a great week and great weekend.
And
Bye.
hopefully season 2 will be awesome for you. So Double A is signing out.